Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owner of the land on which it's taken place, the Yugra people, and also acknowledging the Jagra and Yugraba people whose land cover north of Logan River and up to the foothill of the Toowoomba Range and who have taken care of this country for thousands of generations. I pay my respect to the elders, past, present, and emerging, and the elders from the other community who may be with us today. Please stand for the official party and VIP guests to enter and come to the stage. Would you please stand? We have Mr. Perrett. Looks like we're followed by Surendra, Prasad, OAM, Mr. Perrett. Melody Chen, the host, and Peggy over this side, and then we have Juhee Park over that side, Alan Chen, Edward Ling, John Chen. Please be seated. Welcome to the Australian Citizenship Ceremony to celebrate 2021 Queensland Week. This year marks 72 years since the concept of the Australian citizen was introduced into our law in the Nationality and also Citizenship Act 1948. My name is Lee. I am your MC today. This is the 26th Australian Citizenship Ceremony hosted by All Arts and Multicultural Citizenship Team. For your information, the ladies and gents toilet are on my right. If there's a fire, please follow the exit sign. Appreciate if you can switch off your mobile phone and switch to silent mode. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Leonie Sweetman to do the acknowledgement of the traditional owner and our VIP guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Leonie Sweetman, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, please look, I'll start again. I would like to acknowledge the traditions of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people on whose land we are gathered here today. Mr. Perrett, the presiding officer for the Citizenship Ceremony authorised by Minister under the Australian Citizenship Act 2007. Lee OAM, MC, volunteer organiser and also Life Honorary Advisor, World Arts and Multicultural Incorporated. Melody Chen, Life Honorary President, World Arts and Multicultural Incorporated and the host. Peggy, President, World Arts and Multicultural Incorporated. Marx, Chair of City Standards Community, Health and Safety Committee, and also Councillor for the Runcorn Ward. Surendra, Prasad, OAM, President, Association of Queensland. Alan Chen, President of QLD. And Julie Park, Secretary General, Southside United Multicultural Association. And all the World Arts and Multicultural Incorporated Citizenship Team and volunteers. Last of all, I would like to acknowledge the 25 conferees soon to be new citizens. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you, Leonie Sweetman. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Perrett MP, the presiding officer, who is also the federal member for Moulton and Shadow Assistant Minister for Education, to deliver the opening address. He's also delivered a message from the Honourable Alex Hawkes, the Minister for Immigration, Citizen, Migration Services and Multicultural Affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Perrett MP, please.
Thank you very much, Lewis. And could I also acknowledge the traditional owners and thank them for their strong and continuing stewardship. As Lewis said right at the start, it's it's an important part of being an Australian, is recognising our incredible history. And I'll return to that later. Could I also acknowledge Councillor Kim Marx for making today possible, the community leaders, all of the community leaders, but particularly to Melody and Peggy and all of the volunteers that make today possible. I know it's giving up your Saturday morning to create New Australians is a generous gesture. To Lewis Lee, the best MC in Australia, you're very lucky to become an Australian in front of the best MC in Australia, who has done this nearly 50 times and is well respected for doing so. Sorry, 48, nearly 50 I said, nearly 50. And obviously to the New Australians, thank you for choosing Australia. I know that the journeys to Australia are many and varied. People come here for love, people come here to flee persecution, people come here for economic opportunity, people come here for many reasons, to be with their family, to pursue education. That's something I'm particularly passionate about. But for all the many reasons that people come here, we know that Australia can give new opportunities. So this is a part of Queensland Day celebrations, but it's also, could I point out, in just a few days' time, the shortest day of the year. The shortest day of the year, and then from there on, we start moving into longer days, hopefully slightly warmer days as well. It's a bit of a chilly day for Brisbane. So new opportunities that come with becoming a new Australian. So thank you very much for, as I said, for choosing Australia. But my job is to read out the message from the Honourable Alex Huang, MP, the Minister for Immigration, Citizenship, Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs. And I begin. Today you become an Australian citizen. We are immensely proud of what we have achieved as a nation, and we welcome you in joining us. Our history and culture has been forged over thousands of years, first through Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and more recently with people from all corners of the earth. Australia has succeeded as a nation by embracing and defending our national values. We believe in the freedom and dignity of each individual, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of association. We value the rule of law, democracy, and equality of opportunity for all people. We stand with other democracies in helping to defend and protect these hard-fought freedoms. We are a resilient nation. Drought, bushfires, floods, and a global pandemic have challenged our normal way of life. Our social cohesion, a key strength of Australia, has never been more important. Upon taking the pledge of commitment today, I call on you to embrace these values and the rights and responsibilities of Australian citizenship, and play an active part in your local communities to build an even stronger nation. On behalf of the Australian Government, I congratulate you on reaching this very special day. Alex Hawke, Minister for Immigration, Citizenship, Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perrett MP. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite Melody Chen, the host, also the live honorary president of All Accent Multiculture Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Melody Chen.
Thank you, Luis. Today we have 25 confirmed becoming Australian citizens. We are very honored to host the citizenship ceremony under the guidance of MC Lee OAM. volunteer organizer, and also life honorary advisor for arts and multicultural income. Australia is a wonderful country rich in cultural harmony and diversity. Your Australian citizenship about making a contribution. I cherish this great honor of being able to be part of assisting with this important step in a new life. Once again, congratulations to the conferees who will be the new Australian citizens. Thank you very much.
We need to put our hand together. Melody has been doing this speech as a host for 26 times. This is the 26th time. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite Councillor Kim Marx. Councillor Kim Marx is the chairman or chairperson of the City Standard and Community Health and Safety Committee. She is also the councillor for Ramcorn Ward. I was told that I was the first one to acknowledge her as the chair of the City Standard Community Health and Safety Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Councillor Kim Marx.
Thank you very much for that, Lewis, and he is correct. It's a real mouthful that the Lord Mayor gave me, so I tend to just stick to Kim. As always, we begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land in which we meet and our elders, both present and emerging. And I also need to apologise profusely for being so late for your important day. I got caught up in another event. Well, yeah, thank you, Graham. I really appreciate those kind words. I was exactly on time, but still, I do prefer to be a little bit earlier rather than on time. I'm so grateful to be here today because I know myself, having come from New Zealand, that taking on citizenship is not something that you do lightly. It is the best country in the world to live in, and Brisbane particularly is the best place in Australia to live. And we are very proud of our city here. And I know that the Lord Mayor would love to have been here to welcome you all to Brisbane particularly, but unfortunately he's got many other commitments to be, so I'm delighted to be here on behalf of him. You all know that there's 3 levels of government. There's the federal, which Graham is here representing, and then there's the state, and then there's the local level, which I represent. So we like to say we're the ones closest to the people. Graham spends a lot of time in Canberra, and I spend a lot of time here in Runcorn and Sunnybank. So if you've got any issues, between Graham and I, we can usually get it sorted out for you. And one thing that you will get to a little bit later is the 5 pieces of advice that Graham gives. And with not having been to a citizenship ceremony for the last 12 months due to the circumstances, I've missed hearing those pieces of advice. So I encourage you to listen very carefully to them because they're very good. There is a little tweak that he puts on citizenship. So I just want to say welcome to Brisbane. I appreciate you deciding to make this country and in particular this area your home, and we welcome you to our family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim Marx. Ladies and gentlemen, now I invite Mr. Graham Perrett to do a very important task, to do the preamble and the pledge of commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Perrett, MP, please.
Thank you, Lewis, and also thank Councillor Kim Marx, the Chair of City Standards Community Health and Safety Committee, for those kind words as well. And Kim, as I like to call her, is right. The 2 levels of government you need to worry about are local and federal. We say that because there's no state MP here. Today, it is interesting to note the history of people becoming Australians, because you are required legally, and Lewis is monitoring this, to listen to and make the preamble and the pledge of commitment. That is a legal requirement. So this has only been around since 1949. The process for the 60,000 years before that was basically if you were here, if you were born here, you were Australian. And that was the First Nations people, that's the way they were Australian. And then from 1788, people started arriving in boats, different sorts of boats, I guess. And there was the assumption was that if you arrived here, you were committed to the area, and give or take a few bits of racist legislation, most people that arrived here became Australian. Then in 1949 there was a change. We brought in legislation which had a process for people to become Australians. And since, just to give you a little bit of history, about 100 years ago, when Australia was formed on the 1st of January 1901, about 90 to 95% of the people living in Australia were, 90 to 95% of the people in Australia were born in Australia in 1901. Right now, the people in Australia, nearly 26 million people in Australia, 50% of them have a parent born overseas, or two parents born overseas. So that is how much Australia has changed from the turn of, from 1901 through to today. After World War II, when we brought in this Citizenship Act, there has been nearly 7 million people arrive in Australia, mostly by plane, I guess you would say, in the last 30 or so years, but many by boat. And that surge of Australia has made a multicultural Australia that the Minister referred to in his letter that I read out. That fact that we have social cohesion, we are the most successful multicultural nation on earth. Look around this room and you can see there's lots of different stories. Every one of those stories will help to make Australia a better nation. All 25, nearly 26 million people who have interesting stories to make Australia a stronger nation. Sorry, Lewis, I need to go to the part of the ceremony that is required by law under the Australian Citizenship Act 2007. And so I read the preamble from Schedule 1, and it begins. Australian citizenship represents full and formal membership of the community of the Commonwealth of Australia. And Australian citizenship is a common bond involving reciprocal rights and obligations, uniting all Australians while respecting their diversity. Persons on whom Australian citizenship is conferred enjoy these rights and undertake to accept these obligations by pledging loyalty to Australia and its people, by sharing their democratic beliefs, by respecting their rights and liberties, and by upholding and obeying the laws of Australia. I will now ask those conferees who are making pledge number 1. I think you have pledge number 1 with you. If you're making pledge number 1, it's the one containing the words "under God." Could you please stand? So it'll say pledge number 1. And if you wish to make the pledge on your holy book, please hold it in your hands now as well. Please repeat this pledge line by line after me. From this time forward, under God.
From this time forward, under God.
I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. Thank you. Please be seated. I now ask every other conferee who is making pledge number 2 to please stand. People? Okay. So everyone who's no pledge number 3. Okay, that means everyone who is standing, please repeat after me. From this time forward, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. The people that made pledge number 1, could you stand as well, please? And I'd ask all our VIPs to welcome our new Australians. Well done. That didn't hurt a bit, did it? All right, pleased to see you, all the Australians in the room. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now is presentation of the citizenship certificate. I would like to ask Mr. Perrett to be standing on this mark here. Can I ask Councillor Kim Marx to be on this mark here? Can I ask Melody Chen to be on this mark? And can I ask Peggy Wu to be on this? Okay. Now, Maggie. First one is with the children, right? Together with the children. Come. Can I have Akima, Ashari, and Malika? They are the one in the same family. Okay. And the gift, flag, gift. Give it to Melody.
Malika. It's like at school.
Okay, the next one is Yumia Ahmed. You just wait here. Okay.
Gilbert,
Do you
you
know
follow
No, no, no.
Gilbert, you're the official?
Yeah.
Okay, look at me. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Congratulations. Next one.
Umar, please.
Catalino Moreno. Next one.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Is the family? Just look that. You and your son, okay? Ask your son to come also. Catalino Moreno.
Okay.
Yeah. Chen will be next. Look in the camera. Center. Smile.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Congratulations. Chen. And Joanna, Irene, Coach.
One, 2, 3.
Joanne?
Good morning.
And Deepak Singh, very hard to pronounce. Congratulations, where you come from? Which country? India.
1, 2, 3.
Congratulations. Singh.
Gilbert?
Kara Tingwei Hay. Yeah.
One, 2, 3.
Kara Tingwei Hay.
Kara?
Dijo Johnson. Yeah, you need to check your ID.
1, 2, 3.
Well done, Kara.
Dijo Johnson.
Did you? Please.
Kiran Jofti. Where do you come from, Jofti?
1, 2, 3.
Kiran Jofti.
From Pakistan. Where about?
Juhee King from Korea.
One, two, three.
And then behind?
Do you know Juhee Park, also from Korea? Yu King Kwok.
Another Korean.
Yeah.
Flag behind the certificate. Yeah, all right, good. One, two, three.
Yu King Kwok. Medic Singh.
One, two, three.
Which part? No. Medic Singh.
Where from those?
Really?
Where from? India. Where about?
Canada Muhammad Ali. Congratulations.
One, two, three.
Get up.
Brother Chen. Surname is Montero. Where is India. Portuguese, so we can speak Portuguese.
Don't block your certificate. Put the flag every side. Yeah. Don't block certificate.
He's done this before, so it's okay.
Okay, one, two, three.
Brother Hamilton. Is that together? Just you and two children? Three of them?
No, just one.
Just one, okay. A dog down.
Flag. Yeah, good. Ready?
Are they all
One,
here?
two, three.
Oh, no. Thank you.
Family?
One family.
No?
Only one.
No, John?
Yeah, just taking photo with the children.
Okay.
Have we got enough flag? Give the children the flag.
Yes, we do.
I'll let her.
Ten Chun
Ready? One, two, three.
Well done.
Well done. Congratulations. Ten Chun
Thank you.
Very handsome.
Leader by hand, Dili Kumar Patel.
Flag.
Sorry about the pronunciation.
Correct. Good. Okay. Ready? One, two, three.
Perfect flag work.
One, two, three.
Julian Sweet.
Gina? Gina?
Suripal Singh. or Samipao Sin, which is correct? Sumipao better. Sumipao Sin.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Sumipao Sin. Surendra.
Put the finger. Finger. Don't block certificate. Good. Don't cover the certificate. Yes. Yes. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
We can do one after. Me?
Richard Adam Vox.
One, two, three.
Richard Adam Vox. Dutch.
One, two, three.
That's it. Thank you very much. You did very well today. Ladies and gentlemen, you have done a marvelous job. Now I would like to invite Mr. Perrett to give you 5 pieces of advice. Ladies and gentlemen, this 5 pieces of advice is from him, not from the Department of Home Affairs of the Australian government. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Perrett MP.
Yes, Lewis Lee is correct that this is not official advice, but I've consulted extensively with community leaders like Surendra and Prasad, and he agrees that it is an essential part of becoming an Australian, and as endorsed by local government representative Marx. So my first piece of advice to you of the 5 things is to find a First Nations word that you can use regularly. A couple of words if possible. So I'm going to give you 2 that I use regularly. The first one is, so I'm from about 520 kilometres west of here.
109 kilometres.
My hometown, and one of the words we would use is gorogal, which is a word for cold. So you can say I'm feeling gorogal when you're telling your friends and family that use that word. You start to use words that are connected with the oldest language on earth. And the other word that I'm going to suggest you use, Kim might be able to use it in council without getting thrown out maybe, is naraga. When someone is slightly silly, you can say naraga. And naraga, and they won't throw you out, Kim, they won't know that word. But it's a polite way of saying that someone's quite foolish. Okay, so naraga, but you need to find your own words that you can use, whatever that word will be, because the oldest words on earth are First Nations. They belong to this country. So you're just the newest Australians in the oldest continuing civilization on earth. You've now got a connection with them. And knowing those words also, as Lewis did right from the start, shows that connection to country. You belong here now, and you can only truly belong here when you recognise that long history, and using words is part of it. Number two, also connected to words, is the idea of finding some literature or poetry or songs that speak to you speak to you about Australia. It could be poetry written, 100 or so years ago by Henry Lawson or Banjo Patterson Kath Walker, Ujuru Nanuku from the local part of Brisbane. So find some poetry that speaks to you, some literature that speaks to you about your new home, where you belong. Number three is to find an opportunity to share a meal with your neighbours. Either your food, their food, different food, but sharing a meal with people helps to make us belong together so much more strongly. Sharing a meal makes it harder for people to try and divide us by talking about race or religion or politics, all of those things when we can argue and divide on. If you share a meal together, that makes it easier. Number four, you are to find a gum tree or an Australian tree or some dirt and rub it into your hands and smell it. From today, it will smell different. It will smell much more like home. So getting a gum tree or some Australian tree in your hands from now on, that's your homework as well. We will test that later, won't we, Lewis? Now the last one is a bit more complicated. I know that if you, I think I've met a few people this morning that came from India. Perhaps you've heard of the Indian cricket team. You might even think that they're worth supporting. So I understand if for the rest of your life, India might be your number one cricket team. Maybe if you came from New Zealand, you might think the All Blacks are the best rugby team in the world, and they might always be your number one rugby team. I could understand that. Because they are. The All Blacks are the best rugby team in the world, so they're the world champion. So I understand why you'll always have some teams that will be the number one team in your country of birth. So your job is to find an Australian team that can be your number one team. So you might say, well, in netball, I now support Australia as my number one team. In rhythmic gymnastics, Australia is my number one team. Whatever it is, we've got the Olympics coming up in Tokyo, not very far away. You need to find an Australian team where Australia will be your number one team that you support. And remember, if Australia is ever your number three team, then you can be deported back to where you come from. So be very careful in terms of who you choose. All right, they're my 5 tips. Find a First Nations word, find some literature, share some meals with your neighbours, find some Australian bush that you can appreciate, and find an Australian team to support. They're my 5 tips for being a good Australian. Thank you for giving me the chance to be part of the Australian.
Thank you, Mr. Perrett, and for your 5 pieces of advice. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'd like to invite Ms. Peggy Wu, the President of War Arts and Multicultural, to talk about the Australian Citizenship Certificate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Peggy.
Once you have received citizenship certificate, check your certificate carefully. Your official Australian citizen certificate is an important legal document and is your evidence of Australian citizenship. Please ensure that your name and date of birth are correct and today's date is printed on your certificate in the bottom left-hand corner. Your certificate should be stored later in a cool, dry location. Please do not damage your certificate by folding it. Damaged certificates will not be accepted by the Australia Passport Office. We also do not recommend printing your certificate, as you will need to put the ACC number listed on the back of your certificate to apply as for Australian passport. Citizenship certificate should not be limited. They contain security feature and limited certificate may not be accepted by the Australia Passport Office. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, the President of War Arts and Multiculture. She is the new President. The changeover was done on the 15th of June at the Queensland Parliament House. The outgoing President is Mr. Edward Ling. He has served as the President for 4 years for War Arts and Multiculture. So thank you, Edward Ling, for your contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite Chen, the Senior Vice President of the War Arts and Multiculture, to conduct the affirmation ceremony. This is the 26th affirmation ceremony conducted by Mr. Chen. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together, Mr. Chen.
Now that we have witnessed the breach of commitment made by our new citizens, I would like to invite everyone to participate in an Australian Citizenship Affirmation Ceremony. The Australian Citizenship Affirmation is based on the breach that our new citizens have just made. Participation in the Australian Citizenship Affirmation is voluntary and it carried no legal status. The affirmation was introduced in 1999 as part of our 50th anniversary celebration of Australian citizenship, as a way for people who were born as Australian citizens to be able to make a public pledge of commitment. Those who are not Australian citizens but feel a strong connection to Australia are also welcome to participate. Just join in from the second line. If you would like to take part, please stand and repeat each line after me. The words can be found on the affirmation card you received.
Everyone can do it.
Can everyone?
Everyone.
Everyone?
If you want.
Yeah, please. Everyone stand and repeat after me. As an Australian citizen,
As an Australian citizen,
I affirm my loyalty to Australia and its people.
I affirm my loyalty to Australia and its people,
Whose democratic belief I share.
whose democratic belief I share,
Whose rights and liberties I respect.
whose rights and liberty I respect,
And whose law I uphold and obey.
and whose law I will uphold and obey.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Doing 26th time conducting affirmation ceremony continuously. Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite Mr. Richard Huang. Richard is the volunteer from the Australian Electoral Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Huang to talk about the AEC method. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Huang.
Thank you, Louis. Dear new citizens, you have received a partially completed electoral enrollment form. Please check the details and correct them if necessary. And add in your occupation and postal address, your Australian driver license number, and state and sign. Once the form has been completed, please hand over to the counter of Australian Electoral Commission. For those citizens who are already on the electoral roll as eligible British subjects, please also sign and hand in the enrollment form so that your enrollment records can be updated for your new citizenship status. All Australian citizens need to maintain their electoral details for their current address. Please be advised that new citizens may enroll to vote by completing the electoral enrollment form given to you. If you are not enrolled for your current address, please go to see the officer volunteer from the Australian Electoral Commission. If you are not enrolled for your current address, so you may go to the following website: www.aec.gov.au for more information about Australian Electoral Commission. Alternatively, you can contact Australian Electoral Commission by phone on 13 23 26 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richard Huang. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'll invite Chen back to lead the national anthem. If we have the song ready, please stand for the national anthem. Do that without the music.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Again, sincere apology for the national anthem, technical issue. This is the first time we encounter this. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the presentation of the certificate of appreciation. First, can I ask Melody Chen, Edward Ling, can I ask Peggy Wu, can I ask Maggie Lu, can I ask Leonie Sweetman? Okay. Of this side, can Peggy Wu, Edward Ling? On this side? Yeah. On this side. First, I want to present that to Mr. Perrett, the presiding officer. Thank you for, yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to sit next to Surendra.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Next, can I drop Peggy on this side? Peggy on this side. Peggy to present that to Kim Marx, the chair of the City Standard and Community Health and Safety, and also the Councillor for Rangoon Ward. Okay. This side, maybe this side here. That will be balanced. Look at the camera.
Ready? 1, like a.
You need to.
Yes.
Or Huh?
That's right. I don't know, it's reflection.
Otherwise you can't see me.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Surendra Prasad, swap with Maggie Lu. Okay. Then I Surendra Prasad is the president of the Indian Senior Citizen Association of Queensland, and also the chair of the Australian of the Indian Heritage War Memorial Committee at the Sunnybank RSL. He's also the director of Hindu Council of Australia. What else? You're also the second rotating chair of the Multicultural Social Network. I think I covered everything.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Alan Chen. Alan Chen is the president of UMIA. Can I have Edward? Okay. Look into like that. Look into. Alan Chen is the president of the
Okay.
Universal
1, 2.
Education and Multicultural Exchange
2.5.
Association Incorporated. Look into the camera.
1, 2, 3.
They are the VIP guests. Thank you. Can I have Richard Huang? Can I have Leonie to present this to Richard Huang? Maybe Edward on this side. Yeah. Richard is the president of the Queensland Community Development Association. He has been volunteer for the Australian Electoral Commission for many times. Thank you, Richard Huang.
1, 2, 3.
Can I have Juhee Park, who doesn't present, maybe you have that? Let's start with Melody again. You start with Melody?
Okay, start with Melody.
Yeah. Juhee Park, or Juhee Park, the former Secretary General of the Korean Society of Queensland, and now the Secretary of the Southside United Multicultural Association. She is also the ambassador for the Australian Taekwondo Association. We will be hosting an event at the Nissan Arena on the 24th of July. Can I have Edward? This one, I want Perrett and Kim Marx to be in this photo here. We want to present to Edward Ling for his contribution for the last 4 years to participate in the Australian Citizenship Ceremony, his term as the president. Mr. Perrett, if you can present that to Edward Ling. So on the 15th of July, his term has expired, 4 years as the president, but he has contributed to the Australian Citizenship Ceremony.
1, 2, 3.
Keep you doing the photo. Can I have Kim Marx to present to Leonie? Kim Marx to present to Leonie. I think maybe this one. You understand that Leonie has been doing this acknowledgement of the traditional honor and the acknowledgement of our distinguished guests for the last 26 times. So we want to honor her for her contribution. Thank you, Leonie. We have covered everybody? Yeah. Okay, we cover everybody. Okay, you can take a seat now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to have offer a word of thanks to each and every one of you today. First, I would like to thank Mr. Perrett as the presiding officer and thanks his staff and assistant in the preparation of this ceremony and the printing of the program and certificate of appreciation and all the documents for today. Thanks Kim Marx for the Longmere Community Fund. We really appreciate for your attendance and your speech. Thanks Robertson Garden for providing this venue. We want to thank Amanda Golsky and also Tiana for your wonderful service and wonderful venue for hosting a citizenship ceremony. Needless to say, the support and involvement from the team, from the Department of Home Affairs, this event will not be possible. So we want to thank the team from the Department of Home Affairs in Brisbane and Canberra. Thanks Richard Huang for attending the AEC method, which is the Australian Electoral Commission method. He is a volunteer. Now I'd like to thank all the WMCI citizenship team. Would all the WMCI citizenship team please stand up and put your hand to, please stand up. And all the volunteers today, put your hands together for the outstanding contribution in registration, art activity, delivery of speeches and singing of national anthem, photography and so on. Last but not least, special thanks to the new citizen for attending today's ceremony. This concludes today's ceremony. On behalf of the Australian government and all arts and multicultural, I would like to congratulate you all and wish you and your family a happy and successful future as citizens of Australia. Take care. Thank you very much.